So good afternoon. I am delighted to welcome you to the seminar California for Tai Ji Men, a forum on conscience, justice, and freedom of belief, organized by Sechner and Human Rights Without Frontiers. I am Christine Mir, the director of CAP Freedom of Conscience, a European NGO with a consultative status with the United Nations. I am the representative of CAP Freedom of Conscience to the United Nations, to which I report human rights violations. I have also participated in numerous meetings of the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and contributed to many international events and activities concerning human rights and religious freedom. I would like to say a few words about the theme of this seminar before giving the floor to our distinguished experts. California, the Golden State, is known for its stunning landscapes, thriving entertainment industry, and diverse culture. Beneath the surface of this multifaceted state lies another remarkable aspect of its diversity: religious pluralism. From the Spanish missions of the 18th century to the bustling metropolises of the 21st century, California's religious landscape have evolved into a vibrant tapestry of faiths and beliefs. Today, California is one of the most religiously diverse states in the United States, representing a wide range of religious traditions and beliefs. It continues to uphold the principles of religious freedom and conscience as essential component of its legal and social fabric. California, like the rest of the United States, upholds the principle of religious freedom as guaranteed by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The First Amendment states, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." This amendment applies to all states, including California through the incorporation clause of the 14th Amendment. These amendments protect freedom of religion or belief. It ensures that individuals have the right to practice their religion or belief freely and without government interference. California's approach to religious freedom is consistent with the broader framework established by the U.S. Constitution and federal law, as well as international law. All the fundamental principles set forth in this amendment are well respected in California, such as non-discrimination. California has laws that prohibit discrimination on the basis of religion in various contexts, including employment, housing, and public accommodation with the California Fair Employment and Housing Act. Freedom of worship. Californians have the right to practice the religion of their choice or no religion at all, without fear of government interference or discrimination. Protection of religious institutions. Religious institutions in California, such as churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, and other houses of worship, are protected from government interference and discrimination. They are generally tax-exempt under federal and state law. Separation of church and state. California adheres to the principle of separation of church and state. This means that government agencies cannot favor one religion over another, and they cannot endorse or promote religious activities or beliefs. This separation is frequently applied by the courts. Religious land and use and zoning. California, like other states, has laws that protect religious organizations from discriminatory land use and zoning practices that could prevent the construction or expansion of religious facilities. The experts in this seminar will give us an overview of how California typically understands and protects equal protection and freedom of religion or belief, and how legal challenges with some religious groups have been resolved. By explaining how California has handled a number of emblematic religious freedom cases, the expert may be able to stimulate Taiwan's interest in how to properly handle the case of the Tai Ji Men while respecting their rights and ensuring that justice is finally restored to them. Now, before starting, it is my great honor to introduce Honorable Dr. Hong, who will share with us his wisdom and inspiring remarks on the need in this troubled time to open the world to conscience, peace, and love. Dr. Hong.
Miss Christine, Mr. Thierry, Mr. Willie, Mr. Hayes, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. 各位学者，各位贵宾，各位女士，各位好朋友，大家好。首先非常感谢各位的长期以来用专业与热忱，无私的为人民的自由、正义、人权努力不懈。万法同宗，宗教信仰的目的，皆希望人们能走上通往真理的道路。因而引导人们修行，透过亲身实践，体悟真理，终能回归心灵的故乡。从古至今，人们在人间道的生活中淬炼助心，即使经历种种考验与困难，险阻，仍不改其志，不懈其行，悲悯众生，一心只为世人安。这即是修行。然而，心最难抓摸，最容易受到外在人事物所影响。如何在人性的五毒贪嗔痴慢疑中解脱人性的自觉桎梏，成为一个更好的自己，这是现代每一个人都需要的。而此前提，要修炼健康的身体与心灵，培养坚毅的韧性，方有足够的能量与智慧，面对人生中10之8九的不如意，而从不如意中举起其精力，转动心中的太极。屏幕让他们前面的可以看得到。OK， 再过来一个。今日我们相聚在这里，为不公不义之事发声，呈现真相， 希望唤醒大众与国际社会的良心，督促政府纠正错误，避免公权力侵害人权，促成国家体制改革。这些不仅需要热忱与专业，更需要持续的信心、耐心与恒心。如同我教导弟子练功的过程，学习太极阴阳之理，阴中有阳，阳中有阴，阴阳互动之间修炼平衡，辨别真假好坏对错，聆听良心的声音与指引，在每个关键时刻做正确的选择。这不仅适用在面对不公义的情况，也是每个人每一天生活的写照。因为良心是天地间唯一的仲裁，这也是太极门师徒能以历经27年来遭受思想、信仰等人权的迫害的切身之痛，同理苍生的苦难，坚毅地走过全球100多个国家，推展爱与和平的理念，将良心文化的实践方针广传世界。因为我们相信，人人有良心，天下皆太平；人人有快乐，家家皆幸福。乃是世界和平、社会祥和、人民幸福的目标与境界。有良心之人，必有自由的灵魂，懂得尊重、护卫他人的自由与人权，更勇于为苍生立命。这是一条为万世开太平之路。在座的各位，都在专业领域努力耕耘，并带领更多人实践积极的自由。我们不仅期盼每位受到宗教信仰自由迫害者都能获得正义与自由的好结果，更珍惜来自良心志士共同并肩奋斗、充分合作互助的美好友谊。凡走过必留下痕迹，这些最终都会转化为全人类实现和平境界的珍贵养分与动能，也为下一代创造安全与安心的未来。当更多人跟随良心指引，一起说好话、做好事，说正义话、做正义事，透过交流、分享，激荡正向能量，以爱与良心为根基的和平文化便能扎根。我们不仅在创造自己人生的历史，也在写下世界的历史。愿更多良心志士加入捍卫自由与人权的道路，相互鼓励，携手前行，为万物生灵点亮希望之光，开创美好未来。愿良心觉醒，实践人权， 正义永存。祝福各位，谢谢大家。Thank you, thank you all, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hong, for your inspiring work. So now let me introduce Mr. Massimo Introvigni. He's an Italian sociologist of religions. He is the founder and managing director of the Center for Studies on New Religions, CESNUR, an international network of scholars who study new religious movements. He is the author of some 70 books and more than 100 articles in the field of sociology of religion. He was the main author of the Encyclopedia delle Religioni in Italia, Encyclopedia of Religions in Italy. From January 5 to December 31, 2011, he has served as the representative on combating racism, xenophobia, and discrimination, with a special focus on discrimination against Christians and members of other religions of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE. From 2012 to 2015, he served as chairman of the Observatory of Religious Liberty, instituted by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to monitor problems of religious liberty on a worldwide scale. He is the editor-in-chief of Bitter Winter, the magazine known and recognized for its expertise on religious liberty and human rights. He is a member of the editorial board for the Interdisciplinary Journal of Research on Religion and of the Executive Board of University of California, Press Nova Religio. So, Mr. Introvigni, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you for Dr. Hong for continuing to entertain us with wonderful days. Today, I would like to talk about California courts of law and freedom of religion or belief. Courts in California have often created decisive precedents protecting freedom of religion or belief. In 1990, with the Fishman decision, the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California defined the idea that new religious movements use brainwashing to control their followers as pseudo-scientific. It thus effectively put an end to the use of brainwashing arguments against groups stigmatized as cults in American courts. Less well known than Fishman, but not less important for freedom of belief of new religious and spiritual movements, is the Blackburn decision of 1931. Admittedly, it dealt with a somewhat extreme group, which certainly cannot be compared to Tai Ji Men. However, legal scholars know that it's precisely in dealing with extreme cases that key principles are affirmed by courts of law. The case was about the divine order of the royal arms of the Great 11. Known in short as the Great 11, it was a Los Angeles new religious movement founded in 1922 by May Otis Blackburn. May taught that she and her daughter Ruth were the two witnesses mentioned in the book of Revelation and were receiving revelations from Gabriel and other angels announcing apocalyptic events. Soon, the millennial reign of 11 God-appointed queens would come. The queens would have 11 palaces in Hollywood, where else, and include May and her daughter. A disgruntled ex-member of the Great 11, Clifford Richard Dabney, part of a millionaire oil family, filed a complaint against Blackburn and claimed he had been fraudulently persuaded to donate significant sums to the group. Blackburn was arrested, prosecuted, and convicted by the Superior Court of Los Angeles County on March 2, 1930. The judges believed she had obtained money by fraud, and since the fruits of a fraud cannot be regarded as religious gifts, she was also guilty of tax evasion. However, the decision was reversed on appeal on March 23, 1931, and on November 30, 1931, the Supreme Court of California also found Blackburn not guilty. The Supreme Court justices had no sympathy for the Great 11. They wrote that the movement's, quote, whole plan of life and salvation is a babel of incoherency abounding in absurdities. However, the Supreme Court noted that Dabney, the millionaire, while he was a member of the Great 11, was perfectly capable of functioning as a businessman and donated willingly. The judges concluded that Dabney and others had accepted a strange interpretation of the Christian scriptures, but being mentally competent, they had done it freely. According to the justices of the Supreme Court, from Dabney's point of view, at the moment he made the donations, his choice was rational, because he believed he could expect a bright future in this life and in the next, and the paltry dollars, the judges wrote, he had expended were as trifles compared with the priceless gifts, spiritual and material, he hoped to acquire in the kingdom of the Great 11. So while not resisting the temptation of passing judgment on the Great 11's doctrine as absurdities, the Supreme Court of California ultimately came to a strong statement of religious liberty and the principle that secular judges were forbidden to investigate where Blackburn was really talking with angels and receiving revelations, and was in a position to guarantee a glorious millennial destiny to her followers, including Dabney. Even in such an extreme case as the Great 11, the Supreme Court of California affirmed the principle that secular courts cannot assess the truth of spiritual doctrines. Unless the donor is mentally impaired, it should be presumed that donations are gifts freely given, so no fraud, and tax exempt, so no tax evasion. Let me repeat that we cannot compare a marginal movement such as the Great 11 with Tai Ji Men and its praiseworthy global outreach for peace, love, and justice. However, case law that stands is often created out of marginal, sometimes paradoxical cases. The principles of the Blackburn decision are still quoted by American courts today. They also apply to the Tai Ji Men case, the principle, not the example. Prosecutors, judges, and tax bureaucrats cannot evaluate the truth or quality of spiritual doctrines. In a democratic society, citizens should be free to join the spiritual movements they like, and if they contribute money to them, these should be considered as tax-exempt gifts. Affirming these principles is essential to protect freedom of religion or belief. California courts understood this in the Grit 11 case more than 90 years ago. And Taiwan authorities should finally do the same in the Tai Ji Men case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Introvini, to explain us clearly this Blackburn case happening in the early last century in California. So now let me introduce our next speaker, Mr. Marco Respinti. He is the editor-in-chief of International Family News. He is an Italian professional journalist, member of the International Federation of Journalists, essayist, translator, and lecturer. He has contributed and contributes to several journals and magazines, both in print and online, both in Italy and abroad. Author of books, he had translated and or edited works by, among others, Edmund Burke, Charles Dickens, T.S. Eliot, Russell Kirk, J.R.R. Tolkien, Régine Pernoud, and Gustave Thibon. A senior fellow at the Russell Kirk Center for Cultural Renewal, a non-partisan, non-profit U.S. educational organization based in Mesquota, Michigan. He is also a founding member as well as board member of the Center for European Renewal, a non-profit, non-partisan, pan-European educational organization based in The Hague, the Netherlands. He is a member of the Advisory Council of the European Federation for Freedom of Belief. He serves as director in charge of the academic publication, the Journal of Sechner and Bitterwinter, a magazine on religious liberty and human rights in China. Mr. Respinti, the floor is yours.
Can you? Excuse me. Good manners. Thank you, Christine, and thank you all. And thank you, Dr. Hung, for giving me and us the possibility to share important moments together and important reflections as we are trying to do from this panel this afternoon. Since in our top title today, a very important element, conscience, is mentioned, I will try to address specifically this topic. Conscience is in fact essential to Tai Ji Men teachings. Dr. Hong Tao Tse, the shifu or grandmaster of Tai Ji Men, centers all his teachings on conscience. A reawakening of conscience is what he tries to trigger in the whole world by way of different initiatives toward peace and harmony, most of them organized by the Federation of World Peace and Law, FOPL, that he founded and promotes. If asked to define in a few words what I understood so far of Dr. Hong's and Tai Ji Men's core business and mission, I would respond that Dr. Hong is the ambassador of conscience to the world, and Tai Ji Men dizi, or disciples, are his operators. Of all the possible English words I could choose, I opted for operator because this is the word used by Jesus in the chapter on the Beatitudes in the Gospel according to St. Matthew, when referring to those who make peace, even if most English translations use the word peacemaker. Operator, in this peculiar case, is a beautiful word. An operator of peace is a sublime expression. It avoids all sentimentalisms and all pacifisms and considers peace an attainable practical goal. Peace must be built and constructed step by step every single day with humility and patience. Peace, in this beautiful expression, is in fact something to be operated. It does not come by magic. It presumes labor and suffering, all born with docility, given the nobility of the aim. Tai Ji Men, as an operator of peace, grounds, of course, its teaching upon the ancient and rich tradition of esoteric Taoism. It values the things of the spirit and judges all material things in that light. This would be impossible without a careful management of one's conscience. In fact, conscience is never to be taken for granted. Of all things we can say addressing this topic, one stands above all others. Conscience ought to be educated, and conscience ought to be educated because it is possible to educate conscience. Many or most will immediately react, perceiving the idea of educating conscience as the opposite of conscience itself. This happens when human beings perceive conscience as an opinion. The cultural attitude emerging from this misunderstanding is called relativism. It is the idea that nothing has intrinsic and absolute value because all is relative, except the idea that all is relative, the only statement regarding as absolutely true. Then conscience becomes what I feel, my opinion, even the absurd, my truth, as if truth could be divided in particles and my truth could be different from your truth. Instead, conscience can really be educated. Even more, it must be educated if we want to avoid abuses performed in its name. In fact, conscience is truly the last tribunal of humans within humans themselves. But we all know, sadly, sometimes even out of personal experience, what hell may come from a tribunal that thinks to do justice without respecting the rule of law, no standards, no moral or judicial absolute principles. The human tribunal of conscience needs education. This topic crosses all the pages of a fine 2015 book that Paul Adams, Professor Emeritus at University of Hawaii at Manoa, wrote with American philosopher Michael Novak under the title, Social Justice Isn't What You Think It Is. Our conscience, Adams writes, and I quote directly, is our last defense against cooperating with evil in the name of duty. But conscience can itself be wrong and direct us to do evil. We must both follow our conscience in all matters and also form our conscience well by following reliable authorities and the advice and models of prudent persons, end of quote. Referring to reliable authorities and modeling oneself on the example of wise masters is also a teaching of Dr. Hong. While he is an authority and a model for Tai Ji Men, dizi, and others, he humbly cultivates relationships with people from whom he learns. This is indeed the core of conscience, a compound word that derives from Latin, cum
meaning with, and science, science, scientia in Latin, meaning knowledge. In brief, conscience means to know with others. In fact, and I directly again quote from Adams, we do wrongs both when we act against our conscience and when we follow a badly formed conscience into evil actions or failures to act, thinking they are good or morally neutral. The wrong in the second case is not that we followed our conscience, but that we failed to form our conscience correctly. End of quote. I believe this sentence could have been uttered by Dr. Hong himself. It is here in conscience, in a conscience inherently innate, yet at the same time aptly educated through examples and authorities, that justice can be vindicated. This is why the shifu of Tai Ji Men, a movement that suffered so much injustice, insists on it. Only a world ruled by well-formed consciences could in fact aspire to be just. And in that world, which is no utopia and can be built daily as Dr. Hong strives to do, freedom of religion or belief will be honored as the foundation of all human liberties. Thank you.
Can I have the mic, please?
One of them.
Okay, thank you, Massimo. So, thank you, Marco, to sharing your views on and understanding of the mission of Dr. Hong and the Tai Ji Men disease to create a better world by re-educating mankind on the meaning of conscience. So now let me introduce our next expert, Hans Snoot. Educated with a Bachelor of Science degree and a Master degree in Organizational Behavior from Brigham Young University in Utah, USA. And Snoot currently lives in the Netherlands. He is Vice President of Human Rights Without Frontiers, President of the Gerard Noot Foundation for Freedom of Religion or Belief, Chairman of Platform Freedom of Religion or Belief Worldwide, owner of Mensenrechten zonder Grenzen, Netherlands. For the past 45 years, he has served in a host of religious leadership positions throughout Europe. He has been passionate about human rights on a global scale since 2009. He teaches religion and is a regular speaker at international conferences, symposia, and political hearings regarding human rights. Hans Snoot, the floor is yours.
Let's see if the microphone works. No? Yeah, it's working. No, mine works, Marco. I'll use two. How's that? No, that should work. Honorable Dr. Hong and distinguished guests, I'm really thrilled to be able to say something today, and I hope it will be relevant for you. Conscience, justice, and freedom of belief are interrelated concepts that have been recognized and protected by international human rights law. Conscience is the inner sense of right and wrong that guides one through actions and decisions. Justice is the fair and impartial treatment of all people according to the rule of law. Freedom of belief is the right to hold and manifest one's own religion or belief, or to have no religion or belief at all, without coercion or discrimination. As it happens, California, like Taiwan, freedom of religion or belief is not necessarily granted without a fight. I would like to give you some examples. California imposed strict restrictions on indoor religious gatherings during the COVID-19 pandemic, while allowing other activities such as retail shopping, dining, and entertainment to operate with limited capacity. Many religious groups challenged the restrictions as discriminatory and unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court ruled in their favor several times. A second example. California has faced several lawsuits over the display of religious symbols on public property, such as crosses, menorahs, and nativity scenes. Some plaintiffs have argued that these displays violate the separation of church and state and endorse a particular religion, while some defendants have argued that they are historical, cultural, or secular symbols that do not favor any religion. A third example. California has enacted laws that protect the rights of students and employees to wear religious dress and grooming, such as hijabs, turbans, yarmulkes, and beards in schools and workplaces. However, some cases of discrimination, harassment, or denial of accommodation have still occurred. And finally, last of all but not least, a 2008 Proposition 8, which was a ballot proposition and a constitutional amendment intended to ban same-sex marriage in California. Amongst other groups, it was especially relevant for the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Church issued a letter to its members in California, urging them to do all they could to support Prop 8. Church members raised at least $14 million to the case, accounting for more than half the donations in favor of the measure. They also volunteered a campaign for Prop 8, making phone calls, distributing flyers, and knocking doors. That was all done because the Church teaches that same-sex marriage is contrary to traditional marriage, which is seen as the backbone of a healthy family and society. However, the Church's involvement in Prop 8 also generated a lot of criticism and backlash from the opponents of the measure, who accused it of violating the separation of church and state, discriminating against gay people, and interfering in the democratic process. Some of the consequences were facing protests, boycotts, vandalism, and harassment from angry activists and groups, a lawsuit for failing to report some of the campaign's contributions, and a damaged image in the media and particularly in the popular culture. In the end, it caused a decline in public approval and trust, as well as a loss of members and converts. For the Tai Ji Men to practice Qigong, California can be a safe haven. But as with many religious movements, especially for those from foreign culture, one must be vigilant and participate in a continual struggle to keep justice, freedom of conscience, and of religion or belief on the table. Whilst these rights are deeply enshrined in constitutional law, there is more than just a legal approach to it. They are not just granted by the state, but fought for in a public arena of debate. And it is religions themselves, as they grant these freedoms to their own membership as well as protect those whom they do not agree with, which can take a leading role in making society truly free from inappropriate discrimination and harassment. A society where the rule of law and the respect for people and for each other reigns supreme. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Hans Knut, to have given us some detailed example of how California has dealt with justice and religious freedom. So now we will go to the second part of our seminar, We will leave the floor for the Tai Ji Men dizi. We will share with us their testimonies. So I will give the floor to Thierry Val, who will introduce the Tai Ji Men dizi.
Thank you very much. Welcome for this second session. I will introduce some Tai Ji Men dizi testimonies. So my name is Thierry Val. I'm the director of CAPLC, CAP Freedom of Conscience. As Christine introduced my organization, I have an ECOSOC status. We have an ECOSOC status. We are defending the violation of human rights at the UN. The Tai Ji Men case was often defended by us at the United Nations. So without taking the floor too much, I will introduce our first Tai Ji Men dizi, Mr. Go Dingyi, intellectual properties and legal consultant. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Thierry. Dr. Hong and distinguished guests, good afternoon. I'm Tai Ji Men Dizi from Taiwan, and I'm very happy to be invited to participate in this forum today. I would like to share with you my feelings about conscience, freedom, and justice based on my nearly 20 years of practicing Qigong in Tai Ji Men. I used to be a busy engineer working in the Hsinchu Science Park because of work pressure and my wife's health condition. I encountered difficulty in seeking children after I got married. Later, I was fortunate enough to know Tai Ji Men, and was able to learn from shifu, which has changed our life and allowed us to witness many miracles. After practicing Qigong for months, my wife's physiological pains were greatly improved, which had been bothering her for more than 10 years. And after practicing Qigong for 6 months, she got pregnant, and then we welcomed these long-awaited children. And later, at the rate of 1 child every 2 years, we had 4 children. Thank you. Which was a happiness that we had not dared to hope in the beginning we started practicing Qigong. Because of my interest and career planning, I enrolled in the Institute of Science and Technology Law during my working life. Through the Qigong and the mindfulness techniques I learned from Tai Ji Men, I was able to regulate my physical, mental, and spiritual health, and successfully resolve my stress in various aspects, and eventually graduated with first-class honors. The global financial tsunami hit in my graduation year, but I was able to find a new job and become the top legal executive of a listed stock company 2 years later. Joining Tai Ji Men is the most important decision we have made in our lives. So my wife and I have enrolled every children in Tai Ji Men from birth so that they can grow and thrive in an environment of love and conscience. I'm very grateful to my shifu for teaching me the ability to think positively, giving our family happiness. However, this happiness did not come easily, and I almost missed it in a moment back then. Because of unjust case created by Taiwan prosecutor Ho Kun-ren in 1996. He utilized the media to try and spread fake news about Tai Ji Men. Before we decided to enter Tai Ji Men, we were also confused by the false information on the internet. But fortunately, we still believed in the goodness and the passion that we saw and felt. And finally, we were able to become dizi and have a happiness life afterward. After joining Tai Ji Men, I began to understand the whole picture of the Tai Ji Men case. And I'm even more glad that I made the right decision back then. However, how many people had a misunderstanding of Tai Ji Men because of the negative impression caused by this unjust case, and missed the opportunity to pursue happiness. I'm even more thankful for my shifu, shimu, and many brothers and sisters who adhered to the belief that justice will not call us back, and continue to display the positive attitude so that we could find the light of hope that would change our lives in the years to come. During the World War II, President Franklin Roosevelt of the United States put forward 4 major freedoms that democratic countries should collectively safeguard for all human societies. They are freedom of speech, freedom of belief, freedom from fear, and freedom from want. These 4 major freedoms are the basic values of the world today, and they are the fundamental thinking of democratic countries in their fight against totalitarian governments. However, in the Tai Ji Men case in Taiwan, a democratic country, the executive was allowed to infringe upon these 4 freedoms at the same time. And what is even more intolerable is that such infringement is now in progress. 20 years ago, prosecutor Ho Kun-ren, through specific media, discredited Tai Ji Men as an evil organization and conducted abusive searches and detentions of brothers and sisters who came forward to speak the truth in attempt to create a chilling effect, which infringe on the freedom of speech, belief, and freedoms from fear, and comprehensively seized the properties of shifu and shimu without leaving any money for the maintenance of shifu and shimu's children, which is even more infringing on the freedom from want. After more than 20 years of effort, the Supreme Court ruled that Tai Ji Men was not guilty of violating any of the tax law. We also won 18 administrative remedies from the IRS and got the IRS to admit that the tax bills issued for 6 years were incorrect, and that the tax bills for 5 of those years had been set at 0. However, 1 year's tax bill remained unchanged, resulting in Tai Ji Men's Holy Land be illegal, auctioned, and confiscated by Ministry of Finance. When some civic groups questioned the illegal of this auction, the prosecutor, police, and the government offices worked together to intimidate volunteers voicing their support, even unlawfully arresting a 16-year-old mom volunteer. This was another attempt to create a chilling effect, seriously infringing on people's freedom of speech and freedoms from fear. Additionally, the Ministry of Finance forcible nationalization of Tai Ji Men's Holy Land is even more seriously infringing on the freedoms of belief of Tai Ji Men dizi, and as well as Tai Ji Men's freedom from want. 7 years ago, also in California, I participated in a forum to make the Tai Ji Men case known in US. At that time, no one in the international community knew about the Tai Ji Men case. 7 years passed with the support of Dr. Massimo Introvigni and the international human rights experts. We've garnered international support. I believe that with our continued efforts, we can resolve the case. This case touches on the fundamental value of democracies worldwide and impacts the foundation of Taiwan's freedom and democracy. We call on the Taiwan government to adhere to the law, revoke the illegal tax bill, rectify wrongful convictions, provide justice to Tai Ji Men, and return the land that was illegally auctioned and nationalized. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimonies, explaining to us how the teaching of Dr. Hong improve your life. Congratulations for your children. So, I will give now the floor to our second testimony, Mrs. Wang Ching Chung. She is lawyer and Tai Ji Men dizi. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Dr. Hong, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to me to participate in this forum. After serving as a prosecutor for 11 years, I changed to become a lawyer last month. And my shifu, Dr. Hong, teach me the wisdom of yin and yang. I deeply understand the importance of conscience and justice. According to the Act of Judges in Taiwan, judges shall trial impartially and independently in accordance with the Constitution and laws, based on conscience. That means that judges' decisions should not only be based on the legal provisions, but also on their conscience. Through conscience, they can understand the pain and efforts of the parties involved in the case and achieve a fair result. Although Taiwan is a country that has been in a process of democratization for a long time, there have been incidents of religion freedom persecution in the past. One of the most permanent examples is the Tai Ji Men case. The Tai Ji Men case originated by the illegal investigation to the master Dr. Hong and his disciple, so-called dizi. After 10 years of trial, the criminal court interrogated nearly 200 witnesses, including the staff from the National Tax Bureau. The court conducted investigation on the 12 large boxes evidence and held a total of 58 public hearings. On July 13, 2007, the Supreme Court of Taiwan declared that Dr. Hong innocent, with no tax arrears or violation of tax law. It also recognized that the dizi's reference for Dr. Hong as a gift and exempt from taxation, and conclude that the dizi's assist with purchasing were not for profit. The defendants who had been illegally detained were all compensated by the state. The Control Yuan of Taiwan also pointed out that the investigating prosecutor had conducted illegal investigation and the National Tax Bureau had imposed illegal taxes without investigating the evidence. However, the National Tax Bureau has not formally revoked the initial taxation made without substantial investigation, causing Dr. Hong and his dizi to suffer in administrative remedies for many years. Tai Ji Men is a menpai of qigong, martial art, and self-cultivation. Before the criminal investigation, the tax authority had conducted inspection confirming that Tai Ji Men did not engage in the sale of goods and had not been subject to business tax or profit-seeking enterprise income tax. After the criminal case occurred, the tax authority did not investigate the fact and speculated that Tai Ji Men was engaged in the sale of goods and arbitrarily imposed taxes. The tax authority also failed to fulfill their evidentiary burden of proof to taxation requirements. This not only violates the rights to taxpayers, but also infringe upon people's freedom of belief by the state through taxation. Over the years, Tai Ji Men has been suppressed and tormented by illegal tax bills stemming from deliberately fabricated wrongful cases. This is due to the fact that the administrative court did not make substantial judgment on the content of the taxation and ultimately revoked the illegal taxation. What the administrative court did is sending the taxation back to the National Tax Bureau, asking to make proper decisions. This has caused the repeatedly revived tax bills. But the taxation without sufficient illegal base, it should be in effect from the beginning. The National Tax Bureau continued to issue tax bills based on those unconfirmed accusations that were already denied by Supreme Court in 2007. Even the National Tax Bureau agreed that tax bill for the year 1991 and 1993 to 1996 should be corrected to zero, but maintained the tax bill for 1992, including penalties. In August 2020, the land belonging to Dr. Hong and had been seized was auctioned illegally by the National Enforcement Agency. That sparked the reformers and experts of tax justice strongly condemned and triggered large-scale protests. Over the 27 years, Dr. Hong and his wife have won 18 times in tax administrative remedies, yet they are still forced to provide guarantees. As a result, they have been unable to freely use or dispose of their own properties, leaving many venues unused and abandoned. Ultimately, Tai Ji Men's spiritual and the practicing place was deprived by the administrative enforcement. This deprivation of the most basic place of worship infringed upon the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the two international human rights covenants, the constitutional protection of freedom of religion. It also violates basic human rights such as the right to cultural life choices, equality without discrimination, and the right to effective remedies. Tai Ji Men dizi are dedicated to promote Tai Chi culture, love and peace, and conscience. They believe that only through awakening the conscience of humanity and unite can achieve the world peace. The case of Tai Ji Men requires attention and support of everyone, and hope that the leader and the law enforcement authorities in Taiwan also have conscience and courage to end the religious persecution suffered by the Tai Ji Men master and dizi for many years, restore their innocence and justice, and uphold the freedom of religion guaranteed by the two covenants and the Constitution. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you for these clear pictures of the situation in Taiwan, of the harassment and injustice you are suffering in Taiwan. So now I will introduce our next Tai Ji Men dizi, Mr. Clyde Chin. So Mr. Clyde, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Thierry. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to participate in such a meaningful conference here in California, which discusses about conscience, justice, and freedom. I am a Tai Ji Men dizi, and all the years when Tai Ji Men fought for his innocence with the government authorities, we always try to tell the general public that Tai Ji Men case is not a simple, it's not a single case, it's not an isolated case. So I hope today we can together observe analysis which is plain and straightforward. And any first-time reader, actually with or without any financial background, should be able to, based on common sense, to sense intuitively the structural problems, institutional injustice in governmental authorities can become. The background of having this report to share with you is back in year 2004, led by legislator Zhu Xingyu, there are 163 legislators. They voted and abolished the dated bonus award rules related to tax inspection. However, in year 2007, the MOF, Ministry of Finance in Taiwan, Republic of China, they drew up the MOF taxation bonus operation guidelines and started to budget specific bonus expenditures based on various taxation-related activities and distributed it every year. Against very strong protests from civil organizations and also questions at the legislative end, MOF never stopped these activities for the past 16 years, starting from year 2007. While we, as an organization, as Tai Ji Men dizi, we continue to collect data, trying to correct this injustice exercise. And we find out, and we discovered the existence of certain data in the National Taxation Bureau, National Taxation Bureau budget reports. The budget report means what? A budget report is something you try to get your superior units to approve your budget for next year. And usually what they do is they will have a budget for next year, but they also have a report what they have achieved in the previous year, and that is called budget report. And in these budget reports of National Taxation Bureau, we discovered one so-called annual Essential Performance Index. Here, this is the focus for today. And in order to show you the evidence that we collected, true facts, I explained to you that total 5 tax bureaus in Taiwan. And the 2 most significant ones are the NTB, National Taxation Bureau of Northern Area, and also NTB of Taipei. And what I'm going to use today is these two bureaus' data because they are more representative. I will go down to the screen because I think that will be easier for you to understand. I show you 10 slides. Okay, the first three, it's in Chinese, but the reason I show you is to let you know this is really, really true, the facts. This is the official site of National Taxation Bureau of the Northern area. And from the website, we follow their directions that direct us to the budget report, which is the archived budget report for each year. And then we find out before year 2005, all the information in the archived budget report is very limited. We were not able to get any information in detail. But after year 2008, they somehow put in more information available for us to read and to collect. And this is 2008. We find out the annual essential performance index right here in this page, is in their budget reports. And what it said is, the National Taxation Bureau of the Northern Area, Budget Report 2008, their annual essential performance index demanded by the Minister of Finance, is in this formula. Additional levy plus penalties divided by annual tax revenue times 100% equal to 2.5%. This is their target. In Chinese, here, 2.5%. You can see right here. And on the right-hand side of the red square, it talks about last year, what they achieved. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 approaches, 7 skills that they use to inspect your tax and collect penalties and levies, additional levies. And this is the amount of each approach, what they did. And here is the number, which is very small, 14.43% for last year. We discovered these pages in each of the budget report starting from 2005. And based on that, 2005, 2020, 2022, we draw this analysis trend. The green ones is the target I said. So you can see it's somehow somewhere between 2 to 4%. It's kind of flat. And the red ones are the achievement percentages. I think any first-time reader, when you look at the chart, you can see some messages from this information, right? Anyone would like to share? What did you see in this chart when you see these two lines? Any intuitive feelings? What did you see? Okay. What I feel is they're quite related. Only a few years, like this one, probably this one, they are kind of no connections. All the others is very close. You know, starting from, you can say this is also not too far away. That's the first thing I noticed. Okay. Now, anyone noticed the green line start to change beyond certain year? The green line start to change. It's right here, 2017. It becomes 0. No target stipulated by the MOF starting 2017. I can show you. This is the pages. This one is 2017, still here. There's a ratio stipulated. And this is next year, no ratio anymore. There's a very weird, logically, totally nonsense kind of ratio here. And then the next year, 2019, 2022, they don't have any ratio here anymore. And this is what we did. Because even though they don't set target beyond 2017, they still report what they have achieved previous year. And this is how we can collect data even until 2022. So all these red lines represent 5 individual burials, and the black lines means the target start to disappear. There must be reason. I think there's a clear logic for people to ask why this stopped from 2017. There's one thing I have to read for you. I need 2 hands. This is we collected from MOF, Ministry of Finance website. It reads, establishing a specialized law for the protection of taxpayers' rights is the current trend among the advanced nations in order to be in line with international practice. To ensure the taxpayers' rights, to safeguard people's basic right to exist, to achieve tax equity, and to maintain due process of law. The 14th meeting of the second section of the 9th Legislative Yuan adopted the Taxpayer Rights Protection Act on December 9, 2016, which was announced by the President on December 20 of the same year and enforced on December 28, 2017. This is to us, is the famous Chinese is 纳保法. English is Taxpayer Right Protection Act. It was happened in the same year. So this is why I started today by speaking how institutionalized and structural injustice can become, how significant, how astonishing it can be. And this is what I call the injustice of institutional government authorities. Because if we put everything together, this is the entire 18 years line of 5 summation of those 5 periods. It continued to drop. The ratio continued to drop. And maybe it's because of the law. Maybe it's not. But no matter how, it dropped. It didn't stay flat. So when everything being equal, there's no reduction in their manpower. There's no anything about why they started. Are they richer? Are they collecting a lot of taxes so they can be balanced in budget? It's not that. Everything equal. They're still in deficit. They're still in red. But this is suddenly low. So for me, I'm Tai Ji Men dizi. I know what these 2 organizations did to us. So I have a reasonable doubt. These 2 lines, which one is, we can say, normal in nature, which one is manipulated, which one is man-made? Anyone to say? Which one is more man-made? Who's smiling? More man-made, manipulated. And which one is more normal in nature? Yeah, because it is man-made. There's a target people try to meet, try to achieve. So they are all together. But when the target disappears, the more nature, more normal thing come out. Maybe the authorities, they change their attitude because the nature risk adverse, human natures, make them abandon of this target setting. But the astonishing is, if you compare, here is about, it's 0.85. You know, the gap between these 2 periods, the 5 years and the 13 years period, is 1%. Currently, the Taiwan annual tax income is 3 trillion. 3 trillion. 1%, the gap is 1% of 3 trillion is 30 billion. If they set a target continuously, no matter how, they have to find a way to get to 2%. And how much they have to collect to issue additional levy and a penalty Every year they have to issue 30 billion. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Really impressive, and thank you for your investigation and the time you spent to find all this information that shows that clearly the information have been manipulated, and the Tai Ji Men case is clearly injustice. And as you mentioned at the beginning, is not only in Taiwan, it's in France, Germany, and many other European other countries using the tax office for harassment of religious freedom. So thank you for what you have done. Now, I will give the floor to our next Tai Ji Men dizi, Mrs. Alop Su, Supply Chain Management Specialist. So the floor is yours.
Dr. Hong, distinguished guests, good afternoon. Today, I'm honored to be here in Southern California to participate in Forum on Conscience, Justice, and Freedom of Belief. I'm a Tai Ji Men dizi, and I have been practicing Qigong for about 27 years. I still remember when I was in junior high school, my mother brought me to Tai Ji Men. At that time, I didn't know what Qigong was and what cultivation meant. I only knew that brothers and sisters in this place were very happy. And I love this environment because I could meet many people and learn many things. Due to my studies, I went to Taipei High School. I really went to Tai Ji Men, so I was away from Tai Ji Men for 15 years. Once again, returning to Tai Ji Men, I made an effort to change myself. Firstly, I started to relearn how to smile. Smiling may seem simple, but a genuine happiness from the heart is actually quite challenging to achieve. Then I learned how to speak, how to say the right words. Our shifu often told us, saying what people believe in you. If they don't believe in your saying, just don't say it. More importantly, I learned how to have a dialogue with my own heart, how to observe my own thoughts, and how to maintain inner balance. According to statistics from the World Health Organization, 90% of diseases are related to emotions, and there's an increasing number of social cases where emotional or psychological imbalances lead to violent incidents. This highlights the importance of learning how to maintain inner balance throughout our lives and learning how to coexist harmoniously with ourselves, our families, our society, and our nation. My shifu, with his lifelong dedication, has worked tirelessly to promote Tai Ji Men culture of love and peace. He has also taught all Tai Ji Men to have conscience and help humanity. We insist on doing what is right, spreading the most fundamental concepts of human rights and the ideas of love and peace to every corner of the world. However, when certain systems and powers within the country lose their checks and balances, and under the pretext of exercising public authority, violate basic human rights, the original order becomes imbalanced. The case of Tai Ji Men serves as a clear example of Taiwan's financial system being in a state of imbalance with administrative power dominancy. On July 13, 2007, the criminal court ruling in the third instance specified that Tai Ji Men is not guilty. Tai Ji Men did not commit tax evasion and did not violate the Tax Collection Act. Those who were previously falsely detained among Tai Ji Men dizi and Zhangmen were ruled to be compensated by the nation. The red envelopes are gifts in nature and are tax-free income. The uniforms purchased collectively by dizi are handed by some dizi on behalf of others and are not for private sales, and they unquestionably have no taxation issues. However, a tax case stemming from a prosecution that has been abandoned by the court should be revoked according to the court's judgment, but it continues to persecute us using false tax documents until now. On July 31st, 2020, one knew that Hsinchu branch of the Administrative Enforcement Agency was planning to forcibly auction the designated site of Tai Ji Men Spiritual Practice Center in the mountainous area of Miaoli. I was deeply angered. We all know that before the law, everyone is equal. However, when the law fails to uphold justice, as members of the public, we can only take to the streets to protest. So we went to the protest at the Administrative Enforcement Agency, Ministry of Justice. Whether under the scorching sun or in the rain, we shouted alongside the organizers to voice our grievance, to fight for religious freedom, and to stand up against the human rights persecution. Our goal is to protect Tai Ji Men. The land in the Miaoli mountainous area holds a sacred place in the house of Tai Ji Men dizi, and serves as their spiritual practice, sanctuary, equipment to places of worship for church. According to the General Comment Number 22 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the provision of Article 53 and Article 113 of Taiwan's Compulsory Education Act, it is not permitted to proceed in actions. The actions of the National Taxation Bureau and the Administrative Enforcement Agency are in violation of the Constitution, the two international human rights covenants, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, turning a democratic rule of law nation into one that engages in robbery and placing the nation in an unjust state. Einstein once said, "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." When it comes to taxes, no one is an outsider. We want the government to know there's a group of people watching over it, and that fairness and justice are hard-earned, perhaps even paid for with the blood and sweat. Our shifu has taught us to insist on fundamental principles of discerning truth from falsehood, right from wrong, and good from bad. We should not underpay a single penny of the taxes we own, but we should also not overpay a single penny of taxes we don't own. However, these few corrupt officials continuously tarnish our reputation through the misuse of public authority. In Taiwan, how many households has been ruined because of tax injustice? There's a Chinese ancient saying, "Put down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha on the spot." We hope that these corrupt officials will awaken their conscience, correct their mistakes, and redeem their own souls as soon as possible. I am very lucky to be a Tai Ji Men dizi. Being a Tai Ji Men dizi is extremely important to me because my shifu teaches me how about truth and right in Tai Ji Men. I dare not go against my own conscience, for I fear the judgment of heaven. My shifu told us to spend 5 minutes each day reflecting on our conscience, whether we have lived honestly. We should perform good deeds to atone for our sins, and most importantly, maintain good thoughts to pray the blessings. This is also the greatest freedom of the faith that human rights give me. Finally, I would like to use my English name, Harobi, to wish all the guests to be happy, full of love, and at peace every day. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you for your testimony. There is no words to express how your testimonies of all of you inspire me on courage, perseverance, and fight back against injustice and harassment. So thank you for your testimonies. And now I will give the floor to our last Tai Ji Men dizi, Mr. Alan Ye. He's a patent engineer. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Terry. Dr. Massimo, distinguished everyone. I'm Alan Ye. I'm the Tai Ji Men dizi from Taiwan. So here I'm honored to participate in today's formula to share my thoughts on conscience and justice. So before the first one, okay, I can show you the really thing to love myself. You see what kind of things to love yourself truly, the upside of your loyal side. At first, before I joined Tai Ji Men, I weighed for 110 kilograms and had little fatty livers. So after joining Tai Ji Men, my shifu, Dr. Hong Daozi, told us how to love myself in the truly way. So in the past, when I was when I miss something unhappy, I also using the food to improve my mood. And also it can make me happy for a short time, but it's increased the burden for my body. So after practice Qigong, I learned how to communicate with my body. So I encounter something unhappy again, and I learn to communicate with my body, and I will resolve the distraction in my heart and the medication and the practice Qigong. So not only did I successfully to lose the 30 kilograms, but my little filler will be improved. So this is the real way to love myself, and also an introverted person each time when I need to communicate with the others, just like to phone to the others. So I need to deep breathe so that I can phone out for the other person. And my shifu has told me that you are embarrassed to do this and that, and how can you doing well? So last year, I graduated my college and joined the Full Power Cultural Goodwill Group to visit the 23rd International Conference of Chief Justice of the World, which was held in Lucknow, hosted by the world's largest school, the City Montessori School in India. So I had service as a volunteer interviewer. My shifu has told me that interviewing is the heart-to-heart communication, and through the interview process, I can capture the inner feelings of the interviewee. So during the during the visit, I broke through my own limitations and disturbances. So I got this opportunity and hope to help more and more people to find and grasp the opportunity to change their lives by sharing my own experience and then learn how I get from Tai Ji Men for the balance, for the physics and the spirit. And next one. Actually, I'm a patent engineer, so my job is to help clients to obtain the intellectual property rights protection, encouraging that the individuals to develop the innovation. So you know that for innovation, time is money. Actually, on the March 9th for this year, the Taiwan Excuse Yuan passed the drafts amended for some articles of patent law. Remember, this time is money. So the amendments is that include review and the dispute case was reviewed by the dedicated unit in order to improve the timeliness of the release. Who will be dissatisfied with the review decision will be filed as rule sought directly. That can eliminate the appeal procedure, ensuring that the constitutional protection of people's right to relieve and improve the efficiency of their goals. But we can take for our taxation this administrative relief process for our Taiwan. If you can receive maybe you really bad, you can get an incorrect tax bill. So actually, you cannot directly enter the liquidation process directly. You need to go through the review and the appeal process before entering the administrative litigation process. However, according to the investigation report on the National Insurer Rules submitted to the Control Yuan by the May 4 last year, actually in practice, although the main test for the court judgment statement can both cancel the appeal decision and the original disposition, that also can be revoked. But actually, they always go the circle by this. Actually, as the Ministry of Finance issued that as explanation letters, which has no source bias for the determination, which what was revoked is the review decision, the opposite, the just review decision, rather than the original test size cessation. So, therefore, as long as there will be the review process first, if the court does not make a final judgment and directly revoke it, it will never affect the tax bill. That was be the first one as the beginning. At this time, as long as the National Taxation Bureau has made a new review decision, the taxpayers must go through the relief process again and again. They will fall into an infinite relief process. So, taking Tai Ji Men's tax relief as example. As an example. The Tai Ji Men's tax relief as an example, Tai Ji Men's shifu and the dizi sought tax administrative relief. During the 27 years of the relief journey, they won the National Taxation Bureau for 18 times. In total, at the Bureau, Community and Administrative Court. But, however, the tax bill will not be cancelled, just like the zombie. So, the parties suffered from the torment and the legal tax bills, which will never die. It was wrong, but it never died. So, these parties seriously efforts the people's litigation rights guaranteed by the Article 6 for the conquestly, as well as the guarantee of the efficient remedies in the International Convention on the Civil and the Public Rights. It's called the ICCPR. Obviously, Taiwan's administrative courts are simply unable to uphold taxpayers' human rights and justice. As Tai Ji Men's voluntary defense lawyer Zhang Ruiqing pointed out that the government has repeatedly used the media to smear Tai Ji Men and took advantage of the situation to illegally confiscate of Tai Ji Men's land as state-owned. Just like as the August 21, 2020, the Administrative Enforcement Agency legally auctioned off the land intends for the self-conservation centers of Tai Ji Men for the second time. On that day, I also be protest outside of the Miaoli office of the Hsinchu branch of the Ministry of Justice and Administrative Enforcement Agency for taxpayers' human rights. But the officials turn off their eye. They cannot see people cry and were indifferent. So when the second auction failed, the enforcement agency illegally let the National Taxation Bureau take over Tai Ji Men's self-conservation center. Those illegal acts will cause many experts and scholars to jump up to civilize the enforcement agency. However, on September 15, 2020, Chen Yingjing, respectively, the enforcement authority accepted the interview with EBC Action Court and say that enforcement agency is the only enforcement authority that has no power. But you can see that. In other words, even if the enforcement agency knowing that this is the wrong case, it will not be spare anyone and just shut them down directly. However, you can see that according to the Article 9, Paragraph 3 of the Administrative Enforcement Rule, notwithstanding the enforcement authority can stay an execution according to the authority or up on an application for it if it's necessary. So therefore, if the enforcement agency knowing that the execution title is wrong, it should stop execution first and then discuss this later. However, the enforcement agency does not apply to stop execution and proceed and to excuse this directly. So, by the way, it can cause a great damage to people. However, the government mislead the public through the false media report. And we can see from Tai Ji Men's human rights persecution case that officials has become apologists in persecuting religions, freedom, and the taxpayers' human rights. So actually, I hope to work hard and to promote our human rights. I hope to urge our government to improve the legal and the tax reforms, readdress Tai Ji Men's tax case, sincerely apologize and restore Tai Ji Men's reputation. By that way, they can make Taiwan to be a truly democracy and a freedom country. Thank you all.
Thank you for your testimony. Once again, all your testimonies show how all the Tai Ji Men dizi are dedicated, truly dedicated to peace, love, and conscience, and justice. So thank you, all of you. So now, before to conclude this seminar, for the conclusion, the final word, I will give the floor to Mr. Willy Fautré, former chargé de mission at the cabinet of the Belgian Ministry of Education and at the Belgian Parliament. He is a director of Human Rights Without Frontiers, an NGO based in Brussels that he founded in 1988. His organization defends human rights in general, but also the rights of persons belonging to historical religions, non-traditional and new religious movements. It is apolitical and independent from any religion. He has carried out fact-finding missions on human rights and religious freedom in more than 25 countries. He is a lecturer in universities in the field of religious freedom and human rights. He has published many articles in university journals about relations between state and religions. He organized conferences at the European Parliament, including on freedom of religion or belief in China. For years, he has developed a religious freedom advocacy in the European institutions, at the OSCE and at the UN. So, Mr. Fautré, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thierry. And what a rich day we have had today with the contribution of those experts and the disease, absolutely amazing. Every time it's like that, you know, we are all the time impressed and inspired by what we can hear, and those wonderful demonstrations that we had today are absolutely unique and convincing. But first I want to thank Dr. Hong for convening this seminar today and for sharing with us his views about the concepts and their implementation of conscience, justice, love, and peace. Today's meetings have brought together a lot of positive energy from all continents to reshape the world, which is much needed. They have also brought optimism, which is also necessary to move forward and out of current tragedies and problems. The meetings awake our consciences to preserve peace, to avoid loss and suffering of innocent people. And there are so many nowadays when we just watch television. To consolidate the foundations of the well-being of future generations. While there is a war on earth between good and evil, Dr. Hong called upon influential leaders to meet from all continents, to listen to their own conscience, to listen to our own conscience, and to fight for a peaceful and sustainable future. But Dr. Hong also teaches the dizi, to speak out for justice, to expose the truth, to reform justice. Faith, patience, and perseverance are necessary, he said, to achieve these goals. But what is also necessary is a strong body and a strong mentality to develop resilience. Teaching the yin and yang philosophy of Tai Chi is another cornerstone of Tai Ji Men. The final objective, said Dr. Hong, is sharing the practice of a culture of peace as the foundation of a peaceful, harmonious society in which people can live in happiness. All the experts' presentations that we have just heard were remarkable in terms of analysis, but due to time constraints, I can only focus and shed light on a number of points. The combination of concepts, conscience, justice, freedom of belief, is an explosive cocktail, because the spiritual dimension of conscience gives special life to the quest for justice and the instruments used to reach or approach it, freedom of belief. The first point I want to highlight concerns the terminology choice made by Marco Respinti. How to name and identify things and persons is important in terms of communication and mutual understanding. On top of the pyramid, we have conscience, the individual conscience. And Dr. Hong is the ambassador of conscience to the world. The dizi are the peace operators of his vision. And FOPAL, the Federation of World Peace and Love, is the instrument used by the dizi for awakening or reawakening consciences worldwide. Conscious, ambassador, operators, and FOPAL are the keywords of the spiritual and moral revolution which is underway with Tai Ji Men. Many revolutions in a wide range of realms have started in California and from there have spread worldwide. Tai Ji Men is now solidly rooted in the Californian soil, as the opening of Tai Ji Men Qigong academies in 2 cities now have shown. This is only possible because, as Christine Mir said in her introduction, and I quote her, from the Spanish missions of the 18th century to the bustling metropolises of the 21st century, California's religious landscape has evolved into a vibrant tapestry of faith and beliefs. This was confirmed by Massimo Intravigni, who stressed that courts in California have often created decisive jurisprudence, protecting the individual conscience and religious diversity. In the Fisherman case in 1990, the decision of a district court in California qualified the use of the word and concept brainwashing to control followers as pseudo-scientific, which put an end in the United States to the alleged mind control arguments against groups stigmatized as cults. In another landmark decision concerning a new religious movement named the Great 11, founded in 1922, donations and gifts freely given were at the heart of a ruling by the Supreme Court of California, affirming the principle that secular courts cannot have an opinion about spiritual beliefs. And unfortunately, this is a negative trend that we start noticing in Europe in particular. Intrusion of the state in the beliefs of religions. Hans Noth stressed that freedom of religion or belief is not necessarily granted without a fight, and he listed a few examples in California. During the COVID-19 pandemic, California imposed strict restrictions on indoor religious gatherings while allowing other activities such as retail, shopping, dining, entertainment to operate with limited capacity. Many religious groups challenge the restrictions as discriminatory and unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court ruled in their favor on several occasions. California has faced several lawsuits over the display of religious symbols on public property, such as crosses, menorahs, and nativity scenes. Some plaintiffs have argued that these displays violate the separation between church and state and endorse a particular religion, while some defendants have argued that they are historical, cultural, or secular symbols that do not favor any religion. So California, a land of freedom, democracy, and debate. In conclusion, California and Taiwan have something in common in their DNA. They are lands of religious and belief freedom. To conquer it, fighting is a key word, but to keep it as well. Any new religious movement, especially for those from foreign culture, the beginnings have always been difficult, as it was and can still be the case for what are now historical and global religions, such as Christianity or Islam. Newly arrived and implanted religious groups are often not welcome in European democratic countries. Whether the past and current relations between and interactions between the state and historical religions on their soil. Enemy number one of new religious or belief movements in modern democracies is the anti-cultists. In countries where there is no anti-cult organization, members of new religious groups are not victims of intolerance, and I hope it will be the case here for Tai Ji Men in California. Tai Ji Men is a new movement with beliefs rooted in historical Chinese culture. For decades, Dr. Hong has tirelessly spread his teachings in Taiwan and now increasingly abroad to make societies more inclusive, more tolerant, less discriminatory, more stable, more harmonious, and more peaceful. California is a hospitable land where Tai Ji Men can and will thrive, I'm sure. Dr. Hong's vision is becoming more and more universal, and other continents and countries are now open to his message. Thank you for your attention.